Hello, I'm Dennis Green with Church Development. Welcome to our webinar, Preparing for a 2022 Capital Campaign in the New Economy. Now, we've prepared this for you because in the past year and a half, the church world has undergone some dramatic changes in the capital campaign world. They're shocking in a good way. And so I am the bearer of good news. And you, I'm sure, have observed these phenomenon personally. And in your own worship experience, in your own faith community, you've observed how COVID has had a devastating impact in many regards. And it has forced us to shift over to a more efficient means of communicating like this Zoom webinar and Zoom meetings and online worship. And corresponding with that, the stock market has grown dramatically. Those two things together have mixed like a chemical solution that has created a whole new environment for church capital campaigns. My coworker, Daryl, just completed a capital campaign where we had no in-person meetings. And yet the capital campaign was a smashing success on every level. So let me leap in and share with you those dynamics that will hopefully provide you with the data that you need to begin to plan your upcoming church capital campaign. And as I present this, it's largely optimistic. However, there are a couple of caveats that are related to timing. So the stock market is up. I hope it stays up because of COVID and the additional funding that our government provided to address those issues. There will be an increase in taxes, and that's generally accepted. There will be inflation as well. So the timing, as you're thinking about your upcoming church capital campaign, in general, the consensus seems to be sooner is better than later. All right, so let me dive in. I'm going to share my screen, and then I am going to shrink my picture, and I am going to share with you the slideshow. And here it is. I'm feeling very good about myself technologically. Thanks to the training from my wonderful coworker, Sophie, who handles all these details. We have over 25 years experience. We started in 1992, and it's actually more than 200 capital campaigns, and we've raised around $1 billion. We keep good track of all of our data, successes and failures, so that we can share those with you. I welcome you. You can share this information to anyone that you like. It is our gift to the world. We want to share. We want churches to prosper as well. So here's our agenda. We're going to talk about the big changes in the capital campaign world. In the macro view, looking at the churches, which would include your congregation. And then we'll look at the micro view on the individual level. How are individuals different now in this new economy? And what is the impact on church capital campaigns, the opportunities that present themselves? And our peak will be slides 12 and 13 and actually 14 too, which we're going to share with you some real detailed factors that are really going to help you be a success. Now, you can send me your questions. You can type them in the chat box, or you can text them. And my coworker, Sophie, is going to send those to me. So if you see my eyes darting down, I'm looking at notes that she's sending me, issues I need to address. We're here to help, and we give away lots of resources. If you go to our website, church-development.com, you can download many free resources. And I'm willing to give, I volunteer a lot. It's funny, I do this as my occupation, and I also volunteer as well. And my wife says, you know, you being a fundraiser is kind of like owning a pickup truck. You know, a lot of people want to be your friend. I said, that's why I'm an extrovert. I like people. I like faith communities. It gives my life meaning. So I can volunteer for your group as long as it's a Zoom meeting. Last week, I was in our San Diego office where it was lovely. Today, I'm in the Midwest where it's 6 degrees. And then from here, I go to Oregon, and after that to Oklahoma. So I travel a lot. So anyway, Zoom is probably the best. And we can do it anytime to just connect with your committee and just let them know what to expect. We were founded in 1992. It was right after I had a car wreck. Before that, for the 9 years before that, I worked with all kinds of different nonprofit organizations. I still have close to my heart a science group that I work with that I've been a donor to, and they're in my estate plans, as is my church. But it's largely been churches, and we've really raised more than about $1 billion. And I try to learn from everything. We're a little bit different from other church capital campaign consultants. We take a pretty spiritual view. We not only base our work in scripture, but we have a whole ton of research that we gather in and track, and our experience equips us. Now, it's also our approach to the ask is quite different as well. It's based in prayer and not pressure. So we want people to discern rather than being the recipient of high pressure. Now, we're with you for 3 years after the capital campaign, holding your hand, regular meetings, make sure collections happen, make sure your annual giving goes up on a weekly basis. And then we always begin a planned giving program so that people include your organization in their estate plans. And that's where the big gifts, really big gifts, come. As well, just think of your last estate gift. No doubt it was significant. 1 Peter 4:10 is our core scripture. Like good stewards of the manifold grace of God, serve one another with whatever gift each of you has received. I like that. That's where we begin, and then we augment that with a ton of research. So this is me. I've been doing this for more than 30 years. Husband, father, cancer survivor. I've written 4 books on the subject, published my academic research in the International Journal of Innovation, Education, and Research. I know it makes me a nerd. The sources of data. Now, this book that you see, I'll give this to you for free. Just give me a call or send me an email. It compiles a whole ton of our research. And our value proposition how can you increase giving without fundraising? So this is golden. This is absolutely golden. These items, these 7 principles in there, cost nothing, take very little time, and equate to a minimum of an increase in your regular giving of 10%. How do I know? Because I've done it. I've been doing it for decades. Not only do we study what is going on in the church world, but we also borrow from the academic and the corporate world as well. My favorite researcher is Daniel Kahneman. He got a Nobel Prize. He wrote a book, Thinking Fast and Slow. I feel like it translates directly to our work. And I'm a member of all kinds of associations of church leaders. My favorite is ICSC, the International Catholic Stewardship Council. For instance, they have a suggestion that every church budget 2% of their budget for stewardship expenses. We can't get anybody to do that. In the secular world, they would spend 30% of the funds that they raise on fundraising expenses, 30%. And we can't even get churches to spend 2%. Isn't that interesting? I think we need to learn from the secular world. All right, so let's leap into action. The big changes in the church world. 2021 was a perfect storm. When we hit it, it was an impending disaster. I was very worried about the survival of churches, and things we're a whole different species at this point. COVID has forced all of us to shift to online worship, and we need to embrace that fully. And it's going to be like this for the rest of our lives, which really means investing in good audio visual equipment so that people can participate in worship online. And our outbound communication has got to be digitally friendly so that people can find out what is going on. For instance, it's absolutely critical that you have an app for your church so that everybody on their cell phone can just open it up, go to their apps and hit the app to find out what's going on in my church. It's going to be largely outbound driven. or originated by the church. So it's an informational item. I want to know what's going on with classes and events and baptisms and social activities, and inbound as well. So we want people to be able to sign up for volunteering, for being participating in ministry or responsibility during worship. It takes time, takes money. You're going to spend a couple $1,000s to create that first time around, and you're going to spend some money on it on a regular basis. But boy, does it make a huge difference. One of my heroes, Eric Lavrance, he's a Presbyterian pastor. He was one of the leaders in creating his app in his church, and they paid special care to allow it ease of giving online through the app. And their most recent annual campaign got pledges of over 50% of the total pledges that came in were through the app digitally. What does that tell you? We're all headed that way. Embrace it, move quickly, please. Okay. And if you don't, you are going to be left behind. It is worth spending time. Now, for instance, we always recommend that you put 10% of your capital campaign net proceeds towards ministry and the ministry of stewardship and engagement. We can justify that, and that could underwrite your shift into the digital world. All right, now let me shift from the macro view to the micro world and look at individual changes in the human beings, okay? For the individual, a moment ago, you saw a picture of a whole bunch of people. If we just look at the average singular person, okay, what is their individual experience? At first, we were all lonely. We weren't going to church. Then we discovered online worship. I remember my wife and I sitting on the couch watching our very first experience. It was weird. Then we got comfortable with it. Then we looked forward to it. Then we discovered people from around the world were watching our worship online, and it's been that way with a whole lot of people. It's very interesting. So it was very depressing. We shifted. Now we're comfortable. We're doing Zoom digital interaction, but number 3 on your slide right there, we are very hungry for human interaction. So we who seek to see the church really got to think through, how can we meet that unmet need for human interaction? We've got to facilitate it digitally. And now, as Omicron is moving through the population, and we have a hoped for decrease in COVID infections, we can return to some human interaction. Now, if you're planning a capital campaign in 2022, this represents an opportunity to meet an unmet need. So this is one of the factors that say to me, do it now. A second factor that says do it now is that next item, number 4. The stock market is up, and it has been up. It was not just a spike. If you look back 11 years ago, it was the Dow Jones was at 10,000. So we've tripled in value. Now you have a strata of your members. You have 8.8% of the population of Americans is a millionaire. You have 8.8% of your population that can give significant gifts. Within that, they have made our capital campaigns top heavy. Leadership gifts are now going to play a more dominant role. The next factor that says do it now is taxes will come. There have been a great deal of spending by the government. Taxes will come. That is inevitable. Taxes put everybody in a bad mood. You know, taxes pay for very important things. Life as we know it could not exist without taxes. So it's a necessary component of civilization, but nobody's in a good mood about being taxed. So do it now to avoid the pain of the incoming taxes. And we're always seeing, we're already seeing some indicators of inflation. I read an article today about it being 7% recently. Now we know it's going to slow back down and level back out, but it's coming. Okay, so the individual, I want to respect the 44% of our population apparently do not have $1,000 in savings. I do not want to put pressure on them to give. The church exists to embrace and welcome with absolutely no pressure. Welcome them with open arms and to be of service. Then we have a middle strata who who have retirement savings, and then we have that 8.8% strata who have the capacity to give. So I don't want to put any pressure on the 44% who are under economic stress. We'll do everything that we can to help them. Everybody else has had their investment portfolio grow dramatically. So we are recovering from anxiety. We have a sense of urgency. We recognize that we are blessed, and we're ready for more human interaction. So just evidence of how well things have gone in the fundraising world. I'd like to share with you a couple of statistics. My wife reminds me I can go 0 to boring in 2.7 seconds, but I love statistics. I love Harper's Index. It's my favorite thing to read every month, just a sea of statistics. For instance, Giving Tuesday, just a little over a month ago, giving was up 9%. It's almost at $3 billion giving on one single day. Overall, we're approaching $500 billion given to charitable organizations, and almost 40% of that goes to churches. Foundation giving is up 19%. I used to work for a foundation, giving away money. It was a blast. I just really enjoyed that activity, finding worthy organizations to invest in. And it was a wealthy family, and they gave their money to their foundation, and then the foundation distributed that. And that is kind of a standard tool for people of means. So you can think about a foundation as an institution in an ivory tower, but it's probably a dynamic, alive, living entity, just like donor designated funds in a community foundation, which are growing dramatically. These are vehicles for giving that we need to respect and invite into giving to your church. This does require a little bit of sophistication. At an Episcopal church, it was named St. Andrew's. We built a community center, which became just the beehive of activity for that parish, and has caused growth in ministry and membership since the minute we opened those doors. And it has a lot of glass, and it's inviting. Very different from just having a red door set in stone that says go away. This was a radical departure from the historical architectural presence of Episcopal churches, and it worked. We had 5 foundation gifts to that were just magnificent, that were game changers. This could be you. You need to think outside the box, and you need to think about leadership gifts. 8% are millionaires. It's actually 8.8% are now millionaires, up from 3% in the recent past. So the level of wealth in our country is soaring, which presents an opportunity for you. Now, if you read the 2 volumes, The Millionaire Next Door and The Millionaire Mind, you would discuss that you would discover that they are regular human beings, and you may not know of their wealth. They may not display their wealth at all. So how then do we detect their giving? There's a little bit of technology that I can just share with you. Give me a call, send me an email, I'll share it with you. There's a great deal of publication about donors recently. My coworker Daryl was working in a church that had a family giving $100,000 per year to the university that was near the church athletic department. Daryl did his research. He found the annual report of the university. There we ran the names of our members through this donor database and found out about that gift. And Daryl said, well, wouldn't it be a great idea if they gave that level to the church every year? And yes, it would be. So the first thing he did is invite him to a very casual informational update event with the pastor and several other members of the congregation. So the darndest thing was the next day they brought in a check for $100,000 with a statement, well, we need to get caught up. Way to go, Daryl. That's how professionals act. You do your homework and your research. You're gentle but direct, and bold. Now, the upshot of this is the 80-20 giving pyramid has become 90-10. And if you look at that pyramid on your right, you will see traditionally we have one donor at the top giving 10%. That's just normal. And then we've got about 10 to 12, and here it's 13 that might give us another 40 or 50%. And now that's shifted towards the top. In this presentation, we've got one donor giving us 45%. And that has become a norm. Recently, I had a co-worker, Jennifer, managing a campaign where we had an unsolicited $500,000 gift from a family, and they were saints, and it was unsolicited. They wanted to invest in the future of the campaign and of the parish, and that just woke everybody up like, my goodness, your faith is inspiring. Thank you. And perhaps we should all join in. I seem to get those in every single capital campaign we've done in the past year, kind of left field and a blessing and surprising. And what can I do except say yes? And I am full of gratitude to the individual and to the church and to God. But this is a trend for you to be aware of. So what does this mean for you? And we're coming close to wrapping this up. The next two slides will give you everything you need to know. So thinking about your capital campaign and the new economy, people are hungry for interaction. They're hungry for meaning. You remember Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning? That's exacerbated now because of the lack of interaction that we have had. So we can be like the farmers portrayed in this beautiful painting. We can plant the seeds now to facilitate interaction and involvement. So to facilitate people's search for meaning. I mean, they're pent up. There is some readiness for action. I just recently spoke with a pastor in Oregon who told me they have done very little maintenance on their building for a long time. I met with their committee by Zoom, and they're just some really neat people, and they're full of energy, and they've got all these needs that normally would be considered mundane, like siding and the roof and windows. And this committee was just absolutely full of energy. I said, this is fantastic. So this happens to me over and over again, where people are just so ready for action and so hungry for interaction that the way that equates the impact and from a fundraising perspective is leadership gifts that come in unsolicited. It's just the coolest thing ever. So you can use this dynamic to improve your facilities, to pay off debt. You will have this 90-10 phenomenon. And the thing that requires a little bit of professional expertise, it's going to come in the form of appreciated assets. So how do we facilitate that? I just had an inquiry this past week about an RMD. That's a required minimum distribution from a person's IRA. Can I do that? Yes. Can you bypass lots of headaches? Yes. We want to embrace that and make that happen. We not long ago got a gift of $400,000 of Budweiser stock, and we use that to create a charitable remainder trust. There's an enormous benefit to the donor. Their return on investment from they purchased that stock long ago, so at a very low basis. It grew dramatically. If they were to sell it, they'd get really hammered by capital gains tax. They didn't want to do that. So we were able to create this trust. Their return on investment went from 1% to 7%. They were then able to take a tax deduction that spread out over the next 5 years of $200,000, of half of that. So you can do the math real quickly. If their income went from $4,000 to $35,000 per year, that $31,000 over the next 7 years recoups their entire cost because they got half of it as a tax benefit right away. So after 7 years, it cost them nothing, and it increased their giving for the rest of their lives by that $31,000. I remember the donor saying, are you sure this is legal? Well, yes, it is legal. And of course, we involved their financial advisor, attorney, and CPA to make sure it was all up to snuff and perfect. But this is not an unusual experience. This can happen to you. You've just got to say yes to those gifts. When we're done with the capital campaign, we want to move directly into pursuing estate gifts, which again, in the last year and a half have just been remarkably generous. People are ready to give and they have the assets to do that. We just need to facilitate that by planting the seed and welcoming that. I had a lovely conversation with a donor by email 2 weeks ago, just saying, did you get it? And is my name going on the list? I said, absolutely. Her name was Martha, again, a saint. Says, absolutely. We got your gift confirmation. Yeah, God bless you. That's just wonderful. Okay, so looking at action, what are your next steps? If you're going to do a capital campaign, organize your team right away. Identify your financial needs. It could be building, could be improvement, renovation, it could be paying off your debt. Engage the leadership of your congregation. Survey them, get their input, find out what are they thinking, how are they feeling, confirm whether this readiness exists, as I think it probably will based on my experience in the past year and a half. Set a goal of raising 3 to 5 times annual giving or more. My coworker Daryl recently did a capital campaign where they raised 7 times annual giving, and another one where he did 4.5 times annual giving, and they're just moving into their next phase. You've got to figure out ways to facilitate human interaction. Get ready to ask for gifts of cash and assets, and be ready. Set the groundwork now to ask for estate gifts. Now, here's what's going to happen, and then we're going to wrap it up. A 2022 capital campaign in this new economy will cost you less to conduct. The national average for all capital campaigns is you spend 10% of what you raise. Now, we don't charge a percent. We present a proposal that has that's a real specific and it's nailed down not to exceed. And we've done several hundred capital campaigns, and 0 times have we ever exceeded that amount as written in that proposal. We can produce one for you. It doesn't cost anything. My email is in these slides. Send me an email or give me a call. We can provide a proposal to you. It will take less time. Usually we think it's going to take 6 months to pull off a capital campaign. People's comfort with digital interaction has made our community building activities much more efficient. See, we're going to raise more funds. You will be blessed inordinately by the amount of money that we raise, and it will come through those leadership gifts. So those leadership gifts come in immediately as well. The stock transfers, asset gifts, they come in very quickly. We're going to plan a whole lot of digital interaction just like this, and people are fine with that. We'll have a lot of videos. It's now very inexpensive to do videos. It'll be digitally oriented. It'll be fun. We're going to plan lots of human interaction. We will gather in leadership gifts. We'll plant those seeds and facilitate the gifts of appreciated assets. And we're going to include estate gifts as well. You put those things together and you will have a bountiful capital campaign looking into the year ahead. And I encourage you to start soon thinking about this. It costs you nothing to plan ahead. I can volunteer and meet with your committee in a Zoom meeting just like this. We can talk through the details and you can just start to imagine what it might look like. Cost you nothing to do that, to get that ball rolling. But I would encourage you to do it now, sooner rather than later. We exist to serve you, and it is a pleasure to do that. I've got other resources too. I know a lot of professionals within this world. If you need a visioning facilitator, let me know. I've got a person I can refer. If you need to know ballpark estimates, I just spoke with a church business administrator in Oklahoma who had a question: what would it cost to do some demolition and expand our foyer? I just took one phone call to find out a guesstimate on that. What it's going to cost you to borrow money. I've got a person who just does church loans. She's awesome. And I can volunteer as well to be your church capital campaign consultant in the planning phase as well. If I can do anything to help, please let me know. My number is there, 816-560-3641. That's my email address and our website. Don't hesitate to call anytime. It's a great joy for me to do this work. It's how I've made many friends over the course of many years. And I met my wife too. So anyway, it's been a pleasure visiting with you. Go forth, good luck, and God bless. Bye-bye.